family. Sister Shanice in the house alongside none other than Dr. Clyde Winters. Woo! Greetings, family. You are in for a treat today. We have our great Dr. Clyde Winters. And I know most of you who are familiar with this platform know our beloved very, very well because, he's not a stranger to the Sister Shanice Show platform. This is our great researcher, historian, Afrocentric, groundbreaking historian who's done amazing works across our community. And I am honored to have him in the house today. And, I'm just excited about what he's going to be sharing with us today because, the research techniques that I have been using to do my books, I've learned from the great man himself, Dr. Clyde Winters. And, for those of you, as I said, who are familiar with Dr. Clyde and his works, you will know that he's written over 50 books and numerous academic papers as well. And so I've got a long way to go, haven't I, Dr. Clyde, to catch up to your 50 plus books. You know what? I probably never will, but, it's all good. So please, Dr. Clyde, let us know, how are you?
I'm fine. And how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And as I said, it's great to have you on the show today. You're such an inspiration to me, such an inspiration to so many people who watch this channel, and my audience are always asking for you. So it's great, that you've managed to find the time to join us today. So Dr. Clyde, first of all, to those who may not be aware of your own YouTube channel, share with our audience a bit about your YouTube channel. What is it all about? What sort of videos have you got? How many videos have you got? Why have you got this channel?
Well, on my YouTube channel, I have about 500 videos,
Wow.
and these videos basically they deal with Afrocentric history. I've been doing these videos for over what 15 years, 15, 20 years. As long as I've been on the internet. Yeah, I've been on YouTube a long time, a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember back when you could only do 5-minute videos. Yeah, it used to be you could only do 5-minute videos, but I've been out here a long time, and I've been very excited because of the fact that is that there's so much that needs to be done. That's why I was just so excited when you sent me a copy of your latest book, Hidden in the Shadows. It is so welcome. What makes it so welcome is because the fact in the sense is that everybody needs to have a copy of it. Mine is upstairs, but if it was down here, I would kind of show it. But it's a very important book, and it's important because the fact. Oh, let me see.
Yeah, I think he's gonna go and get a copy of the book. I've got to get that picture, family. I'd love to have a picture of everyone who's got a copy of the book. Oh, look, Dr. Clyde. Oh,
There it
yeah,
is.
there it is. Look,
This is
there
the book.
it
This is the greatest book, family. This is the most important book of the published in the past 50 years. Hidden in the Shadows, of ancient Britain, because see, Sister Shanice, she's got together, and what she's done with this book is that she's presented so much primary evidence, so much evidence to show the important role that Blacks have played in Britain for the past 300 years, not just the past 60, not just the past 200, not just the slaves. Sister Shanice, she breaks it down in her book. Yeah, she breaks it down in her book about the history of Blacks in Britain, and it's a book that everybody. I mean, it's a book that every person in the Caribbean, every Black Briton should have a copy of her book. Yes, they should have a copy of her book because see, by having a copy of Shanice's book, what you're going to do is that you're going to make it so that you're able to really understand the importance of blacks in Britain, because, and it is hidden in the shadows. It has been, it's been, they put it out back in the 19th century. They started doing all this research. They talked about how great Britain was, but they never thought that the enslaved people would ever one day have their own, YouTube channel or even read the books. Because remember, it was against the law back in the day for any black person to read. I mean, in America, you could get killed if they found a slave who could read. You were murdered on the spot because
Yes.
they did not want you to have knowledge, and that's one of the reasons why they try to hog tie us today and try to keep away from the public a lot of the research that Sister Shanice is doing, because the fact they don't want you to know, they don't want you to know our history. Because see, when you have history shows you not just what you did in the past, history also shows what you can do in the future, because it shows, in a sense, how dynamic you are.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's so, so true, as we know. And while they were forbidding us from reading, they were rewriting our history. They had those post-colonial racist scientists that were coming up with all kinds of new racial theories to try and, suggest that we were inferior and less than. And yeah, they rewrote as many books as they can. That's why when we need to do our research, we have to dig deep. We have to go beyond, the mainstream books that they want to keep us focused on, because it's outside, of those particular books that we're going to start to find the truth about our history. So, Dr. Clyde, are you frozen there? Oh, no, there you are. Okay, I thought I lost you for a moment. So your YouTube channel, what's the name of it? And when do you do your
Afrocentric. It's called Clyde Winters Afrocentric History. That's about it.
All right, thank you.
Very simple title. Just put in Clyde Winters, and it'll take you to the Afrocentric history site. I have there over 500 videos, going back into the early 2000s. So I've been on this trail for a long time.
A long time, yeah. I thought I'd been on here for a long time, but woo, you've been there certainly a lot longer than I have. I'm just posting the link.
I was there when you were a teenager, But hey, hey, we can't really tell now. Can we really tell now? No. We can't even tell now.
You know what they say, black don't crack.
Got that right.
It's so
that's why I think white women hate black women so much, that they become so wrinkled and prunish. They become, prunish and stuff. And if you notice, have you ever noticed, Chenise, that they rarely want to put a wrinkled white woman on TV?
No, they don't hardly do they.
They do not. Because they want to play up, in the sense, the fact that the white woman is the epitome of womanhood, and that she's the sacred goddess of femininity. But then if you could see them once they get past 50, I mean, hey,
we'll want to be in.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
For real.
I don't know.
That's just life, when the powers that be made us, they poured perfection into us. They really did. So family, I'm just posting behind the scenes, as I normally do. So I want to thank you so much for logging on. If you are tuned in, please do hit us up in the chat. Let us know that you're in the house. Please welcome my guest. Please make my guest feel welcome, so that he'll always want to come back and visit us on this channel. Show him some love, give him some love, family. The way I know you all can do. And I'm honored to have Dr. Clyde Winters in the house. Many of you have asked for him to return to this channel, and so I'm delighted that he has taken up that offer. So let's go over to the chat, shall we, and see who we've got in the house. Oh, yes, we've got a few family members in the house. We've got Kwame Oboje in the house. We've got, hang on, And remember, please do also to give us a like as well when you come through the door. Let us know where in the world you're viewing us from as well. I know we have an international audience. I love the fact that we have an international audience. So please do let us know where you're viewing us from. So Kwame Aboje is bigging us up. Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Always great to have you in the house. We've got Tuka Pamoja in the house. Rise up, rise up. She's sending greetings to you as well, Dr. Clyde. And we've got N Tom Tom in the house, aka me. He says, how can I get a copy? You can get a copy of my book if you go to Amazon. If you're in the UK, you can email me and I will post you a signed copy. Here's my email address, Shanice books 55 at gmail.com. That's Shanice books 55 at gmail.com. Email me and send me your address. I'll send you the bank account details. You can drop £20 in the account with your name as the reference, and you will get a signed copy if you're in the UK. If you're outside the UK, go to amazon.com, put in the full title or my name, and the books will come up. Thank you so much, Anton.
Also, when you buy the book, family, when you buy the book, make sure you return to Amazon and put a book review, put a review on it, because they have online reviews. So put a review on the book so other people will find out how great the book is, and they too will, buy it. So don't forget, don't just, in a sense, purchase the book. Don't just read the book, but do that third step, write a review, write an online review so that people can get excited and really know, whoa, what a great book that it is.
Thank you so, so much, Dr. Clyde. Yes, please, please do. And I think you can give it a star rating as well. Please give me a 5, because don't I have the trolls? Oh my God. I've got these trolls. They go on my site. They give me a 1 star. They try and trash the works because they don't want the truth to get out there. So family, it's a war. We're at war, just trying to get the truth out there. Oh my days. So yeah, please do that. Thank you. Rise Up Doravel is in the house. Yeah, great to have you in the house. I know you're a follower as well of Dr. Clyde, so it's great to have you here. Tuka Pamoja says that I'm going to get a copy when I get paid. Scholars in the house. High five. Thank you. Tuka Pamoja is going to get a copy soon as well. That's right. That's a very apt title, Hidden in the Shadows. Thank you. Good to have Teresa in the house. Rise up, Teresa. Teresa's phenomenal. I've done some works with her before. Great to have you in the house. She's bigging you up, Dr. Winters. Kate Safair as well. Another joint beautiful family member is in the house. Rising up the chat, and both of us as well, and enjoying some cinnamon raisin bagels. Oh, as she watches. Nice, nice. Oh, yes. S.A. Smith is in the house. Yeah, we've got Larissa in the house. I'm going to be going back to the chat in a little while. Welcome, welcome, each and every one of you. We thank you so, so much for joining us. Please do share the link. You know what YouTube is like. Makes it really difficult for everybody to find the link and to find the chat. And we want you to be able to find us. All righty. And the more of you that we have actually sharing the link, the easier it is. Okay, I'm just going to do a few announcements, and then Dr. Clyde, he's going to be coming to you with a presentation, and then I'm going to be coming afterwards with a wee presentation as well. So it's going to be great. It's going to be, it's going to be such an informative show tonight, because Dr. Clyde Winters, who does these amazing research programs where, he shares with us the research techniques that he's been using for well over 50 years plus. And he shares these research techniques with us. And these are the techniques that I use to do my research, and that has informed my books. And you can do his course like I did, and just get so inspired by him, because he's such an inspirational person. And yeah, so he's going to be sharing some of those nuggets with you. And then I'm also going to be sharing with you the sort of research that I did when I did my course with Dr. Clyde Winters, how I actually went about it. So Dr. Clyde is getting ready in the background. And as he does, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to just give you a few, do a few announcements, family, because there's always, you know, so much going on in our community. It's good to be able to share and let you know about the hard work that our people are doing. You know, we've got appeals, we've got petitions, you know, and we need your support. Our community needs your support, but you're not going to know how to support the community if, you know, you don't have the information. And so just going to do that now. So let's go over to a slideshow and get it in the right format here. Always takes a little while, but I'll get there in the end with this. Here we go. So today's show, special guest, Dr. Clyde Winters, how to research and reclaim our erased history. Okay, finally, yeah, we've got the view that I want. So Dr. Clyde Winters is going to be coming up very, very soon. Got a little bit of good news that I want to share with you, family. I've been nominated for an award. Oh my gosh, thanks to those of you who it was that nominated me for this award. It's an influencing, what's it called? Influencers. It's like, you know, an influencers award, and you can actually vote for me. I've been told, I mean, the family and friends have already started voting, and I'm up there with the top 5. So I've gone through to the next stage, and you can actually cast your vote so that, you know, maybe I can win an award. Okay, so I'm up there with the finalists, and I'm getting a little bit of recognition for my works, but whether I get recognition or not, who cares? I'm still doing it anyway. But if you would like to vote for me, go to Charles Gordon Trust Awards and vote. I'm in the Influencers Awards category. Okay, I think you can vote from wherever you are in the world, so please do go and do that. If you're in the UK and you'd like to get a signed copy of my book, just to let you know that this coming Saturday, the 16th of August, I'm going to be signing books at the Hackney Central Library. I'm going to be on the stall alongside our beloved brother, Elder Pepperkai. And, you know, there he is in the picture there. He's got an amazing stock of books, thousands of books. You know, it's his centre in Tottenham in the UK that has housed so many of our great historians over the decades who have visited the UK. And, you know, he's experiencing a bit of a plight at the moment. I did share that with you last week. I'll touch on it again this week for those of you who maybe didn't tune in last strong. But yeah, come and support. He really does need our support. And you can buy one of his books. He's got an amazing collection of books, as I said. And I'll also be there with my books. And so you can get a hard copy or soft copy of my book there, a signed copy as well. So please do come and support. Come down to Hackney Central Library, 1 Reading Lane, there in East London, E8. It's the Children's Black Book Fair event. So bring the young ones along and get them books. There's nothing more important than getting your children into the habit of reading. Encourage them to read, 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 read. Reading is knowledge. And as they say, readers are leaders. And we want our children to be leaders, okay? So encourage them to read, bring them along. And then on the Saturday, if you live in the Catford area, I'm going to be co-hosting an event that's called the Black Perspective. Let me just get that advert. Sunday, the 17th of August.
We gathering round, listen up, let me tell. The Black Perspective, bringing love, we do it well. August 17th, a date you never forget. Join us in Catford, the vibes gonna be set. shine so bright. Arts and culture, philosophy in the air. Music and poetry join us, show you care. Line up so fresh, community activists speak. From Prophet Kwaku to the rhythms unique. Come celebrate it together, it's a family jam. From the heart of the people, we know who we are. Edutainment loaded, let your spirit roam. At the Calabash Center, feel the warmth of home. Hear the drums of fire, we in the back. Sista Shanice with the vibe, we on track. Chris, I am Princess Makeda, bringing the heat. Dr. Abu Ratata, his wisdom can't be beat. True identity vibes uniting the souls. Papa Wesse and Fiaston making us whole. Barry Drex in the mix, feeling the flow. Ilfatunde feeling the love, let it grow. So mark your calendars, limits unknown. From 3:30 to 10:30, good luck, full blown. Admissions and donation, children under 16. Get ready for a gathering like you've never seen. Come celebrate together, it's a family jam. From the heart of the people, we know who we are. Edutainment loaded, let your spirit roam. At the Calabash Center, feel the warmth of home.
Calabash Center,
Calabash Center, feel the warmth of home.
George Lane in Catford.
Calabash Center, feel the warmth of home. Refreshments by impression now, order and balance in tow. Auntie Jean streets waiting, come on bring the flow. Stalls filled with culture, hit up 0796, waiting 86032. For a taste of African markets, you know it's true. Experience the day with vibes so profound. In the spirit of Garvey, we're breaking new ground. Elders and youth, we will rise and prevail. The energy's electric, together we sail.
Woo! Rise up,
So
rise
gather
up.
your family, bring your friends too. Celebrate our roots, what we going to do. With love and respect for the ones who came before. The Galaxy family is opening the door.
Enough artist family, enough entertainment, edutainment, schools, African market. This Sunday, the 17th of August, 2025. Certainly hope to see you in the house. Rise up to Dr. Abu for that track there, absolutely phenomenal. So come on down, you know, Prophet Kwaku, Dr. Abu, Chris I, we've got sound system, we've got live bands, we've got Sangoma drummers, numerous artists are going to be performing on stage. It's in celebration of the Right Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, because this month of August is Garvey month and the 17th is his Earth Day. So we every year celebrate his Earth Day. We dedicate the entire month to Garvey because we want to make sure that his spirit lives on. So rising up the spirit of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, come and celebrate with us on Sunday. If you're in the UK, come down to Catford. Nuff things are going that day there. Hope to see you there. Moving on now to our appeal to you to please support our petition by signing it. Stand with us as we stand with the people of Tanzania, the Maasai people who have been kicked off of their land. We need to get thousands of you to sign this petition. So if you haven't already signed it, please do go to change.org and just search for Stop Illegal Maasai Evictions. I'll post a link in the chat. Really need you to sign the petition. Very importantly, after you have signed it, please do verify your email address, because your vote will not be counted unless you verify your email address. Okay, so please remember to take that next step after signing the petition, and then of course share. Thank you so much. Let's stand with our brothers and sisters in Tanzania by signing the petition so that we can let them know that they have family here in the UKKK and around the world that cares about them. Okay, another link that I'm going to be posting in the chat, or phone number actually, is going to be that of our Elder Pepper Kai. Last strong, we had Brother Leader Mandaka in the house, who knows Elder Pepper Kai very well, has worked closely with him for about 4 decades, he says. and spoke extremely highly of our elder and called on everyone to even try and contribute £20 to the appeal that he's raised. He's trying to raise some funds so that he can avoid the repossession of his home. This is a man who's put up his home, put up everything so that we can have community facilities. Now it looks like his home is under the threat of repossession. So he's got a limited amount of time to try and raise £42,660. He's already raised 20,000 of that. He needs to raise £22,000 more. And we do know that if, say, 23 of us was to put £1,000 each, it would be problem solved. And we will be able to keep his home. We'll be able to keep the community center, the community facilities that has so much potential for our community. And he says, you know, it's a bridging loan. It's a community bridging loan. And so in a year or so, depending how things go, you know, his aim is to ensure that you get that money back. But, you know, with all loans and everything, you know, it's a risk. Yeah, some risks we take with money. Low risk, medium risk, high risk. You know, this is something that we've got to do from the heart. Okay, so to those of you who've gone and enjoyed, you know, the greats that have attended the Mahat Community Center, you know, the greats from around the world. It wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the likes of our elders. So please do support him in a time of need. I will be posting his link in the chat. Okay, let me just send it there for now. Those are the announcements. So I'll be posting the links to those dates, etc., in your diary, whilst our beloved Dr. Clyde Winters joins us on the big stage here on the Sista Shanice show. And so while you are presenting Dr. Clyde to our wonderful audience, you know, I will just post those contact numbers for our people. Dr. Clyde, I mean, if you were in the UKKK, would you be joining us at the weekend, this strong end for any of those events?
You can bet that I would definitely be there. You know, I'll be there in spirit. So if you feel a nudge on the elbow, that's me. Don't become too afraid. That's me. No, not really. I used to know this guy named Hobzala back in the day, and he used to be one of those people that could send his spirit around. Now, I don't do that. I don't do that. Oh yeah, you know, back in the day, a lot of people, they I guess they thought they were being positive, but it was demonology. They were dealing with demons, you know. Yeah. You know, you'd be surprised. A lot of people sell their soul every day.
Whoa, true. That is so true. So yeah, we did touch on spirits in our show last Strong, and we were talking about, you know, how our spirits never die. And how we can, you know, keep certain spirits alive as well by calling on the name of those greats, you know, and it's their energy that they had while they were here that, you know, can infuse us to do the great things that they did, you know, and the power of having, you know, those right spirits. You know, we didn't get into the demonic spirits, but you're right, you know, good and evil, you know, work hand in hand and stand side by side, don't they? And and we've got to be able to resurrect the spirit, you know, of some of our great ancestors and the courage and everything that they had. So yeah, but anyway, without further ado, family, let me welcome to the stage Dr. Clyde Winters, mastermind, world-renowned Afrocentric scholar, groundbreaking historian, fearless truth storyteller, and delighted that he's joining us on the platform today for what is going to be an unfiltered, deep insight into the history that they don't want us to know about, that they have tried to erase. And, you know, this is going to be another great show. A little later, I'll just remind you of some of the great shows that Dr. Clyde Winters has already done on this platform. And, you know, they are phenomenal. So his presentation is going to be sharing with us some of the research techniques that he uses to uncover the African roots of world civilization. This is a man who's written over 50 books, and all of those books have required an extensive amount of research. And in those books, what he is able to do is bring the hidden connections between ancient empires and the fact that they were African empires as well. He's just been revealing all these hidden truths for decades now. And, you know, it basically calls on us to do some of that work, and also at the same time to contribute to rewriting the truth of our history. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Clyde Winters again. Woo! Over to you.
How's everybody doing? Let me see.
Let's see how everybody's doing while you're bringing up the research. Yeah, we've got Loretta in the house. Ooh, says I'm looking regal. Thank you so much, Loretta. S.A. Smith's in the house. Brother Kwame Aboje. Oh, he's saying what an inspiration you are, Dr. Winters. Yes, indeed. Have to agree with him. He also is bigging you up. 50 years teaching about Africans in the world, not just the UK. Yeah, thank you, family. And Kwame says, yes, Baba Pepperkai, as Mama Chenise said, in Tottenham, has his Pan-African book distribution. He says, I support him and I promise to donate £10 to protect his Mat Centre in Tottenham. Thank you so much. As soon as you bring your presentation up, I'll hand over. There we go.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I'll get started. You know, there's many mysteries and exciting histories about Black people. Much of our history is hidden, but much of our history is mysterious. And it's mysterious because of the fact that people are ashamed to really talk about our history, or people don't know about our history. So what I try to do every Thursday is I try to, in a sense, present in my Black history themed videos, various aspects of Black history. You know, I've been very excited about the fact is that, you know, Sister Shanice in her latest book, you know, she's taken it a one step further, you know, because see, what makes this book so important is that it's the first book to really deal with Black Britons. You know, many people, you know, grow up in Britain and they've been there for 50, 100, 200 years, and yet they don't think they belong. But what makes the research of Chenise so wonderful is that she shows that they not only belong, but this is a place, in a sense, where they can really be fruitful and multiply. You know, let the researcher do the research. Yes, let the researcher do the research. What that means, in a sense, is that we need more of you out there to do research. We need more of you out there, in a sense, to be prepared to share your research and do research about our people. Yes, our people, because it's by people understanding who we are, where we've come from, that we can move forward. And it is sad that many of us don't really know our great history, you know. You can go to Patreon and see the slides. After I do this presentation, I'm going to put the slides for the presentation on my Patreon. My Patreon is only $5 a month. Please support me if you can. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. You can follow me at TikTok.com at Clyde Winters 3. There you can see a lot of my video shorts. A lot of the material on TikTok was done by Yoshima the Genius. And, you know, I hope that you guys, in a sense, will support Yoshima the Genius in his effort, in a sense, to present to the world our greatness. You know, you can buy my books. You can buy any of my books at at Amazon.com. Feel free, buy one, buy all 50. Come on now. Don't be selfish. All of these books, you can get them. And once you get these books, you can put them in your library and you can have access to a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of over 20,000 years of history dealing with Black people. You know, they like to just teach you that our only history began with slavery, and it ended with our with the development of these modern African nations. No, our history goes back over 10, 20, 30, 40, 200,000 years. Get these books so they can help you to learn about that history. You know, there's a very interesting video, and these brothers and sisters, they said the first Americans were Black. And this video, if you can find it, is very interesting. And what makes this video interesting is that the people in this video discuss my genetic evidence, the genetic evidence that I present that shows, in a sense, that that Black people were in America before Columbus. B1 is Black first. B1 is brilliant first. You have to understand that Black, today we see Black as a negative term. But when you really look at Old English, when you really look at the definition of Black, you see that Black, in a sense, also meant brilliant. Yes, Black meant brilliant because the fact that, in a sense, is that many of the elites who lived in Europe before the end of the war, the 30-year war and 100-year war, before they brought into Europe all of those mercenaries from the Caucasus Mountains, most of the elites, most of the people in Europe were Black. But these Black people, in a sense, because of the fact that we failed sometimes to get along with each other, because of the fact that sometimes we're harder on each other. I mean, I've met people who can easily forgive a Caucasian, but they won't forgive that Black brother or that Black sister. You know, some people in the same family can't forgive each other, but we have to learn how to forgive and to move forward and understand, in the sense that we are all we got. We have no friends. We have no friends. B1 is Black first. B1 is brilliant first. No, don't forget, we are Black and brilliant. What is FBA? FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lot of people try to say that FBA is a political organization. No, it's just like the Yoruba tribe or the Hausa tribe or Caribbean people. It's just an identification. It's just a term to identify the Black people in America as a unique group. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the Black Europeans, Africans and Aboriginal Blacks who built these United States. You know, what I've tried to do over the years is that I've tried to, recognize that when doing research, you want to get direct and engagement with primary sources. You want to go to those primary sources that deal, in a sense, with the Indus Valley, Meroitic civilization, Olmec civilization. Because by looking at these primary sources, what you're able, in a sense, to see is that our ancestors left us messages. Many of these messages that they left us are 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 years old. And what I've made a primary part of my research to decipher some of these ancient inscriptions, Sumerian, Mandi, etc. Because see, when you work directly with the artifacts and not just later interpretations, you can really truly see our greatness. You can really truly see our contribution to civilization. The best way to understand our history in doing research is you want to look at our artifacts, pottery, skeletal remain. And what you do is that you use these artifacts, you use this pottery, you use these skeletal remains to trace the African presence. You use this evidence, in a sense, as a way to go back in time and use it as a time capsule. And from this time capsule, you want to present to the world our authentic history, not that history that many Europeans project as our history, but an authentic history. As a result, when you see archaeologists who've analyzed cranial measurements and the cranial measurements between the nose, this area is what usually, in a sense, allows a physical anthropologist to tell if a person had been Black, white, green, or blue. Sometimes also the pelvis, because the Black female pelvis is a little bit smaller because of the fact, in a sense, is that Chinese, they have the biggest head babies then Europeans come next. You see, and see, we had to base our claims on material created by our people. And the only way you can get this material is by looking at the archaeological and the anthropological evidence that we've left. Much of my research, especially in my early days, was basically linguistic. I use what's called the linguistic comparative method. And in doing the linguistic comparative method, what I did is that I compared primary word lists, root words, the structured words, and their grammars to see if these people spoke languages that were related. And as a result of this research, I was able to connect the Mandi, Sumerian, and Dravidian languages. The Dravidian languages are spoken by South Indians through phonetic correspondence. Today, many of the Dravidians, like the Tamil and Telugu, they don't want to recognize their Blackness. This wasn't always the case. You know, up to about 5, maybe as late as 10 years ago, many people from India were really proud to acknowledge their Blackness, acknowledge the fact that they had a relationship with us as African people. But now they want to be white, and they feel in a sense as even though then any of them can be darker than you and me, and even sometimes have kinky hair, a lot of times in a sense they want that whiteness because they feel that they get that whiteness, they can get that acceptance, you see. But when you look at the words, we look at the words from the original language, linguistic data, rather than summaries, you can see this relationship. You can see how these Black people in ancient times also reflect languages that were spoken not just 10,000 years ago, but languages that were spoken up until this day. You want to look at overlooked evidence. A lot of times, in a sense, is that if you really want to understand our history, find out more about our history, you want to re-examine museum pieces and archival documents. You want, in a sense, look at these documents and look at when they highlight the early explorers. When they talk about the fact that these people were dark-skinned and they discovered in the Americas, dark-skinned people that they discovered in Asia. You want to look at this information, and that's why you want to revisit some of the original evidence, because see, these neglected records can offer legitimate historical data that proves and supports our past, you see. Our history is being stolen, and if it's not being stolen, it's not being interpreted in a proper fashion because they don't want you to know who you are. Because when you know who you are, you have pride, because remember, what makes ancient history important? What makes ancient history important is that it shows what you've done in the past. And because you've done these things in the past, it proves that you can do even greater things today and in the future. You want to challenge the established narratives that Black people have not in a sense, created any history. You want to, in a sense, get away from these standard narratives, and you want to base your interpretations on inscriptions, early maps, and the archaeological findings, because when they find these skeletons and they report back that these skeletons had Negroid features, that shows that you were there. You got to use evidence-based reasoning to counter the omissions in mainstream history, you see, because what you want to do is that you want to align this so-called revisionist history, but it's not really a revisionist history. When we write about the history of Black people, when we write about our greatness, it's not revisionist. It's not revisionist. It's the true history because it's only in a sense a history that's grounded in the direct evidence that we have from archaeological, historical, and other sources, Because, see, you're empowered through source-based knowledge, When you look at the primary evidence that reflects African contributions to early civilization, you say, damn, these people are lying about us, you see? You avoid the historical gatekeeping, and Europeans, even today, I believe there's so much knowledge that they hide from us, there's so much knowledge that they don't even publish. Yes, it's so much knowledge that they don't even publish just so you won't know your identity, just so you won't know your history. That's why you have to be encouraged to do independent investigations. You have to do independent investigation by visiting these archives and looking at these artifacts. Sadly, very few of us have access to the material that they have in these museums, because a lot of times the people in the museums are white, and and they're kind of clannish. I remember back in the day when I was doing a lot of ancient history research, I used to go over to the Oriental Institute. And the Oriental Institute, you had all these white folks talking about Sumerian history, ancient African history, everybody's history, you see. But I could get into their archive because the fact is that there were many Black people who went to the theological school. And because they went through the theological school, I could just come into the reading room, I could go into their stacks, and they would ignore me because they said, oh, that's just a Negro over there studying about Jesus. Yes, Jesus. Yes, Jesus love me. I'm going to be a Negro down on the old plantation way. They didn't know that I was a liberation fighter, that I was really there in a sense to find out about our history. And this is a place to be. If you guys go to university, if you go to university, even if you're an undergrad, try to, in a sense, visit the stacks. Visit the stacks. Those are the books that are way in the back, way in the back, that can really have information that deals with our history. See? But they're not going to advertise the stacks because they don't want you to know that you'll find the truth about who and what we are, you see. So we're empowered by going through this knowledge. In conclusion, my work shows authentic history requires going directly to the source. My research reconstructs a more inclusive past, an inclusive past that's based on understanding primary evidence. And this is something that we have to look at. We have to, in a sense, realize that it's through understanding primary evidence that we can really, in a sense, be able to acknowledge who and what we are and be able to move forward, you see? And so that's what the name of the game is, and so this is how I do research. I hope that can help some of you guys out there to do research. Sister Shanice, what are some of your research techniques?
Let me unmute. Thank you so much. I'm seeing Zoom on the screen now. So if you end your screen share, I will go over to my screen share and share some of my research techniques within the context of the books that I've written, so that, our family can see how they can use the techniques that you've talked about to go into books, really. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Clyde. I'll go to mine in just a second. And, you skirted over the linguistics, the skills that you have, to be able to decipher, linguistics very quickly. But to be honest, family, Dr. Clyde Winters, he speaks a number of languages. And so his ability to be able to decipher these really old ancient scripts is unique. And I know you've got a book on that as well. You've disappeared. We can't see you on the screen, Dr. Clyde. Yes,
I'm here. I just wanted them to concentrate on you.
Oh, no. I'm just wanting to have a little conversation. Just want to tease out from you a bit more about your linguistic skills, because that's exceptional in the world of research, because linguistics is one of the key kind of foundational pieces of evidence that you can use to be able to, show parallels and links between different cultures in different parts of the world, and also what you can use to prove that particular groups or nations of people were somewhere. So we might, for example, find an old stone in England that has some ancient writing on it, and you'd be able to look at that writing and you would be able to recognize the similarity between, say, the Phoenician script and the Mendi script. And it's like, well, what's the Mendi Phoenician script doing in Britain? And then it's like a light bulb moment. Just tell us a little bit more about, the importance of linguistics within the context of research, please.
Okay, well, linguistics is important because whenever you look at languages, whenever you look at words, that if you find words that share similar meanings, if you find words in a sense that present similar feelings, what this shows is what's called in linguistics a family relationship. And so when you do comparative linguistic research, what you're doing is that you're trying to determine a familiar or family relationship between the languages. What this means is that whenever you, in a sense, find languages that share grammatical features, vocabulary, grammar, structure, then in a sense, when you see these 4 characteristics, grammar, structure, vocabulary, you see what you're able, in a sense, to do is you're able to show a family relationship. And so that's how I became involved back in the day, because I was trying to, in a sense, develop this whole idea of linguistic research. I always liked linguistics, I remember when I was at university, I had already studied French. So I was kind of lucky. I had already studied French for 4 years. So because I had studied French for 4 years, when I went to the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, we had an instructor called Charles Stewart. You wouldn't believe that he came from Oak Park because he had a British accent. But he came from Oak Park, Illinois, but he had a British accent. And so then, so back in the day when I first started, back in the 70s, early 70s, when I was at university studying African history, you had to be able to read French, because many of the books that were used in the class were written in French. Because it was back in the day, they didn't have a lot of the translations of ancient African documents were not in English. They were in either German or French. And so then therefore, in a sense, when you took an undergraduate course back in the day, I mean, today when you take a college course, they have maybe 1 book. Back in the day, you may have to read 3 or 4 books. And then you had books on the reading list that you had to read in the library. And so because of the fact, in a sense, that I had studied French, the French language, for 4 years, I could read it, write it. I was really good in French back in the day. I had a beautiful accent. So I could, rap to the girls. No, not really. I didn't learn it just to talk to the girl. Yes, I did. But again, in a sense, is that because of the fact I had that reading knowledge, it allowed me to be able, in a sense, to read some of the historical texts that had been translated from Arabic into French. Not only that, but I also, in a sense, began to see that many, especially when I started reading about the Mandingo people, I began to see how many of the Mandingo words were words that were shared by the people who spoke the so-called Sumerian language. So I began to see, in a sense, that somewhere along the line, these people had to be unified, and they had all lived in Africa. Now back in the day, if you were black and had a beard, you were a Semite. So if you were a clean-shaven black person, then okay, you were maybe an Arab. I mean, maybe an African. And so then every black person that had a beard back in the day, they were a Semite. So they had nothing to do with you. And so the European was always trying, in a sense, to put us in the clans, put us into categories so that we could always, in a sense, be separated. And because of the fact that he could separate black people, that way, in a sense, he was able to keep us from understanding our history. That's why when you wrote your book, Hidden in the Shadows, and your book is dealing with those aspects of the Black Britons who've been erased from history, it allows us, in a sense, to really get a focus, really get an understanding of that relationship. And I am so proud of you. I just thank God so much that you came into my life so that I could really find someone else who loved their people so madly in love that she too could, in a sense, devote much of her life and much of her time to write these books. Young people, fellas, you don't understand. You don't understand that when you do research like what Sister Shanice does and what I do, often your mate feels neglected. Often your mate feels, hey, I'm here. Do you see me? Yes. You see, we see you. Many of the people back in the days, I know, like some of the people who were involved in this, a lot of times they end up getting divorces because their mates couldn't really take it, you know. So, but I looked up and I found a woman who said, "You're silly as hell, but I love you." And so then, I mean, that was good. Sister Shanice found a man who said, "Hey, you're up, you're there, but I'm with you, baby. I'm with you, baby." And so that's the most important thing, you know. And so I've been very excited about the fact is that Chenise, she took my research class, but she not only took my research class, but she extended it. You know, she's written articles and she's published them online to share her research with our people. And this is what we need. We need to have great researchers. We need to have people in the sense who are not afraid. And see, that's the whole point is that, yes, you know, because you just don't understand when Shanice would dare to write this book hidden in the shadows. You know, it's a lot of people out there just waiting. They got all these coconuts and Negroes, Uncle Tom's just out there waiting to attack her, waiting to bring her down. But do you know what? They don't attack Sister Shanice because they're afraid that if they mention her work, you'll read it. And you'll see that it's all full of nothing but the truth, all full of, in a sense, information that can help us to feel proud about ourselves, help us to know who we are and what we are.
Thank you, Dr. Clyde. And that is what it's about. And the day I decided to take your course, oh gosh, you know, it's been a life changer in terms of my research journey. So just going to share, you know, the works that I've been doing since I've done your class and how your research class has really impacted on my works. Okay, so I'm going to do that in a presentation form. So I'm going to go into sharing screen again. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Winters, and for sharing, you know, the linguistic side of things as well, in particular, because there may be others out there who really enjoy let me just get the right screen, who really enjoy languages and might decide from a historical perspective that they actually want to start looking into the similarities of languages.
And not only that, but I published several books that you can find online. And these books explain you how to use the comparative linguistic method to do research, to conduct research related to African people. So try to go to Amazon.com if you're interested in using linguistics to do research. Go to Amazon.com and publish those books where I discuss how to use the comparative linguistic method.
Yes, indeed. Do that. I've clicked presenter view. I'm just wondering, sometimes if I click it twice, it opens and then it closes. Let's click
I'm just going to
again.
take myself off the screen, but I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just trying to set this up. Here we go. Let's hope it doesn't jump out again because I clicked it twice. And so we've just been hearing from, you know, our beloved Dr. Clyde there about the importance of using primary sources in order to get evidence of the works of our ancestors, and that by using primary sources, you know, you are closer, much closer to understanding what the culture, what the way of life, you know, what things were like during that time. Anyway, let me just quickly go into the presentation as it looks as though it's staying there. Yeah, we're talking today about how to use research to reclaim our erased history. And for those of us who know me, you will know that a couple of years ago, I did the Dr. Winters Africana Phenomenology Research Program. And, you know, it wasn't the first course that I'd done in African history, but it was a very transformative course because it was actually focusing on how to do your own research so that you know, could be sort of the pioneer really in uncovering hidden histories. Because, you know, we've got a lot of great researchers out there who are doing amazing work, but they tend to be involved in secondary research work. That's you know, looking at the works that other historians of ours have done, and then, you know, highlighting extracts from those works. But then to go further, you know, like Sheikh Anta Diop challenged us to do, means that we have to do the research ourselves. But then how do we go about doing that research? That's what I was actually learning on the program, which is, as I said here, part of a new strand of African-centered researchers. And, you know, we're about producing scholarly work. We're about unearthing hidden archaeological, anthropological, linguistic, documented evidence and symbolic proof of our deep-rooted cultural, historical presence as Africans across the globe. And my area of particular interest has been the deep-rooted cultural presence of us as Africans in Britain. And I'm the author now of 5 books, actually, because I've just published a new book that I'll tell you about in a second as well. It's a children's book, basically the story of Queen Scotia that I'd written about, that's in Hidden in the Shadows. I've taken that chapter and I've turned it into a children's story version for children, because it's just such an inspirational chapter of the book. But I'll tell you about that in a little while. And I've done a few other books, and I'll talk about those as well. So many of you know the late great Sheikh Anta Diop, and you will know that in his book, The African Origins of Civilization, at the time that that book came out, you know, he was making some bold, transformative claims. He was basically challenging, the perspective of history that had been presented to us by the Europeans. He was arguing that ancient Egypt was actually a Negro civilization. And at the time, people were like, no, what? You know, is he off his trolley? Because at the time, you see, we were all being taught we were all being taught a Eurocentric version of our history. And they were portraying Egypt as white, Middle Eastern, you know, Euro-Arab, anything but African. In fact, they took the whole of Egypt out of Africa and put it in the Middle East. And Diop was saying, no, you know, that is not the case. He was totally opposed to the perspective of the Europeans. And at his time, you know, he was asserting, you know, and this would have been back in Dr. Winters' time as well, where they were asserting that, you know, that Egypt was in fact African history, and that, you know, as Africans, we needed to correct these distortions. And so Sheikh Anta Diop, he famously said that the history of Black Africa will remain suspended in the air and cannot be written correctly until we as African historians dare to correct that history and the history of Egypt. And so he was challenging us as Africans to be our own historians, the ones who told our own stories. And for as long as we evaded, you know, taking on that responsibility, then, you know, we would always be ignorant of the truth. And it's great, the works of the likes of Sheikh Anta Diop, and of course, Dr. Clyde Winters, John Henry Clark, and many other scholars who did the work to provide the compelling evidence that basically established that Egypt was an African civilization, that established the greatness of ancient Africa, on the continent of Africa in particular. And we have to give them enormous amounts of credit for all of the work that they did, you know, in highlighting our historical achievements of the people and giving us, you know, as Africans back our rightful history on the continent of Africa. Because, you know, they were trying to make out that Africa, you know, was uncivilized and it was a primitive place and that there was no history there. That was the Eurocentric view of Africa, and that it wasn't until they came along, you know, that we became enlightened. But, you know, because of the great works of the likes of Sheikh Anta Diop, John Henry Clark, Dr. Clyde Winters, and many others, you know, we have been given back knowledge of our history on the continent, primarily as Africans. Well, just as that Sheikh Anta Diop back then actually called for the rewriting of African history on the continent of Africa, the works that some of us have been doing today that is coming across early Black civilizations of Europe and the early Black civilizations of China and other parts of the world, you know, we have now got to do the job of demanding that we as African historians take the lead in rewriting the history of us as Africans in Britain and other parts of the world as well. Because, you know, we can't rely on them to do that work for us. They're not going to be presenting us as Africans how we ought to be presented, and they're not going to be reflecting the truth of us as Africans either. And so how do we go about that? What sort of research techniques would we need to use to be able to uncover the works, to be able to uncover evidence of the fact that, you know, we actually existed, as Dr. Clyde was saying, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years ago? How do we go about actually challenging the conventional accounts? Because, you know, they tell a compelling story. And not only do they tell this compelling story in their books, but they do it through their films. They do, you know, they use their media. You know, they use a multiplicity of means to actually reinforce their version of history, which basically writes us out of history to a large extent and puts themselves into the forefront of everything great to do with history. And, you know, so these are some of the techniques that I've learned about on Dr. Clyde Winters' course. Some, you know, like, so for example, the first one is probably the approach that most of us take, but there are so many other techniques that we can apply as well. And I know Dr. Clyde's got a terminology for it, you know, all of these multi-layered approaches to producing evidence and to confirm our findings as well. So this is the sort of approach that I use in my books when I come to make some of the claims that I do. I don't just use one discipline. I use a multiple number of disciplines to actually check, double check, triple check, you know, what it is that I'm actually saying. So before I make the claim, for example, that the earliest inhabitants of Britain were actually us as Black people who had migrated from Africa, I will not only have had the information, not only am I able to prove that by identifying certain ancient books and texts, but I'd be able to substantiate it as well using archaeological evidence, anthropological evidence, linguistics, genetics, and other scientific sources. And in more recent times as well, you can even go into the legal records to substantiate what you're saying as well. And I suppose I do need to mention as well, and Dr. Clyde mentioned this as well, that when it comes to us as sort of Afrocentric historians, we have to go over and beyond to prove our findings and to substantiate what it is we're saying, because we are targeted not only by Europeans, but sometimes by our own people as well, who want to dismiss what we're saying as pseudoscience, you know, because we've all been so indoctrinated by Europeans with their version of history that when someone comes along and says, well, you know, you're going to have to unlearn all of that because it's a lie. That history is a lie. You know, a lot of our people want to hold on to those lies because they've studied those lies. They are specialists in regurgitating those lies. And it's like, how can I let that go? It's you know, but we're saying, no, that a lot of that history is a lie. And so we get the challenges from our own, and then we get the challenges from the mainstream who are saying, you know, all of what we're talking about is pseudoscience and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we have to make sure that we can come up with evidence that's indisputable and irrefutable so that we can make the claims that we do to prove and to support, you know, our version of history. So in terms of ancient books and texts, you know, what you as a researcher would have to do is you'd have to go and dig into these ancient books that were actually written during ancient times, because these ancient books, and there are many of them out there as well, and some of them you can find online. At one time, you'd have to go, you know, probably into the cellars of the British Library to be able to, you know, dust the cobweb off of some of these books, you know, before you could, you know, sit down and read them. And you'd have to visit the library day after day and spend weeks trawling through these books, you know, and then you might be able to make notes, you know, and quotes from some of these ancient books, which you would then use in your own book to substantiate what you're saying. And these books are important. These ancient books are important because they would have been written closer to the time, you know, of the actual event. And so they would offer first-hand descriptions, first-hand information about the people, about their culture, about their way of life. There would be some context within the book as well in terms of, you know, their interpretation of the events that they're writing about. And so when we are studying our history through these ancient texts, it can actually reveal a lot of us. You know, it's giving us the indigenous accounts, it's telling us about maybe the social values, you know, and the authors of those ancient times as well are quite often less likely to be as racist as the colonial authors were during the sort of 19th and early 20th century. And so, you know, those early authors would be just simply giving an account of what they're seeing, you know, what they think the belief system might have been at the time, what the accomplishments were. You know, they give descriptions of what they're actually looking at. And, you know, so you're going to get a very different perspective if you read the ancient books to what you would get if you're reading the more recent sort of colonial narratives and colonial interpretation of some of those ancient books. So, you know, these ancient textbooks are great for actually getting, you know, first-hand descriptions of the people sometimes that they're talking about. They'll describe them: small statured, swarthy looking, small statured, dark complexion, you know, negroid features. They will tell you about the people that they're writing about, but later colonial narratives will remove that sort of important information that's important for us, and they'll put their own images in those books, and then we won't even know that we're the subjects that have been talked about in those books. Then, of course, you know, secondly, you've got, you know, linked to that, the pre-colonial accounts, because, you know, those pre-colonial perspectives, whether they have written first-hand accounts or whether they're writing the history, the oral history of the people, you know, again, it gives us those insights into those ancient civilizations prior to the colonial influence. And, you know, these sort of sources, they help to counterbalance, you know, the more recent colonial accounts and negative portrayal of African societies and us as Africans as being primitive, you know, because otherwise that's what you're going to read about. And instead, what these pre-colonial accounts of our history are more likely to show is, you know, the richness and the diversity, the African knowledge systems, the governance systems that we had. They'll talk about our art, they'll talk about our trade, they'll talk about the belief systems. They'll, you know, so you're going to get quite a rich overstanding of pre-colonial societies, African societies as well, in these pre-colonial accounts that's been documented. So look for those books as well. Thirdly, as well, and what a lot of our historians use is archaeological evidence. Now, archaeology provides, you know, hard proof of past civilizations. When you go to these museums, you know, and you're looking at the artifacts, when you're looking at the structures, maybe, of the relics that have been left behind, you know, when you're looking at the tools, when you're looking at the art, all of this, you know, is from ancient times. And it's like Dr. Clyde said, it's like what our ancestors has left behind of their ancient civilization that's talking to us today, you know. And through this archaeology, us as African historians, we can actually use it to begin to uncover the extent to which, you know, some of these cities must have been advanced. You know, so if you're going to find, say, for example, even like a brooch that this king is wearing on his regal attire there, because, you know, even if the fabric has decayed in his tomb, but what's likely to still be there will be the gold brooches or the bronze brooches or his beads, his earrings, his crown, you know, and, you know, just from these relics, when they polish them up, you can look at it and say it's from the period of the 1st century AD. You'll be able to see, you know, the intricate designs that was on the brooch. And it's like, so they had, you know, metallurgists, they had people who were designing, you know, and sculpting all these wonderful fine pieces of artwork, you know. And so you can see the civilizations that must have existed. There would have been craftsmen, specialists. There would have been people who understood their metals, you know, to be able to put all that together. And then it begins to give you a picture, a small picture, but an important picture of, you know, the society that must have existed, the trade that must have gone on. And when you start finding, you know, more of them, and you look across the museums, you can see how much sort of funerary treasures that they found, you begin to realize that there must have been, you know, large scale networks of all of this advanced metallurgists doing all of this work, mining, because you'd have to mine the materials first, you'd have to know how to refine it, and then to design it. And this is scientific stuff. You know, you don't know how to put the metals together if you don't understand metals in the first place. And so, you know, just from looking at archaeological evidence, you know, and if you're finding archaeological pieces in Africa that then resemble, you know, pieces of artifacts that you're finding somewhere else in the world, you'll be like looking at, hang on a minute, you know, why have we got African artifacts that stated, you know, thousands of years older than African artifacts that's found somewhere else in the world, with such similarities? You know, did the people of Africa bring it there, or was there trade going on? You know, and what is this message saying to us? What are these? Now, these are links that when mainstream European historians talk about archaeological pieces, that they don't link together, because, you know, we are taught to look at history in a very that's the word I'm looking at. We're looking at them in isolation of each other, when really we should be looking at history as a whole. And so if we find something in China, we're like, oh, Chinese history. If we find a piece of artifacts in Asia, somewhere, India somewhere, it's like, oh, this is, you know, from India, or this is Europe, or this is American. But what we ought to be looking at is the similarities and the links between all of them, because that tells another picture. That tells us about the past civilizations, how they traveled, you know, the trade that was going on, the similarities between the tools that they were using, their artistic skills and designs. There's so much that we can talk about that links our people together, that, you know, later historians or racist historians or colonial historians are not going to touch, because, their biases is going to get in the way. And so from archaeological findings, I'm just touching there on some of the invaluable information that we can actually get from archaeological evidences, the innovation, the high sciences, the knowledge that they must have had to be able to develop those technologies at the time, So, these archaeologists, they're forever digging, they're forever excavating, and they're forever finding, all of these really important treasures. They even excavate skeleton remains of individuals, and then, they will use the shape of their head and the size of the skeleton and the frame of the skeleton to give an idea of what they think the person would have looked like. And it's usually portrayed as a European, especially, if it's dated thousands of years old. But now, you've got the geneticists on the scene, and I'll come to them in a little while. So anyway, the archaeologists, they can provide some invaluable insights into the past. And remember, when we go to the museums, we're looking, at the past, the ancient societies, the innovations, the science, the technology, really important insights into the past. Now, anthropologists, they tend to work alongside the archaeologists, because they're the ones now that study the archaeological pieces that have been found, and they put a whole story around that piece. And they are very good at coming up with very compelling stories, that kind of try to illuminate what the society must have looked like, and who was in that society, and what the practices of the communities must have been like, what the community organization must have been like, and they'll build this whole story around, for example, the end of a piece of tool that they found, that's dated 10,000 years ago. But that really is just their interpretation and their understanding of what that tool means. And quite often when you read their work, a lot of the times as well, they don't have explanations for a lot of the things that they find. And I always say that that's because it doesn't belong to them. It's not part of their historical culture. That's why they're unable to interpret, some of the ancient societies. So they usually just speculate, But when we come on the scene, and when we start talking about, the pieces of architectural goods, it's almost as though we're getting a spiritual download. And so we're able to interpret, these ancient pieces of artifacts sometimes very differently to how a European might interpret it, because we're putting it within the African context, which tends to make a lot more sense than when you're trying to look at something through the lens of someone else. So the Europeans are looking at our history through their lens. But when we look at our history, we're looking at our history and the history of our ancestors through our DNA. They're talking to us because our ancestors would have lived. We are the direct descendants of those ancestors that lived tens of thousands of years ago. And their experiences is still in our DNA, albeit dormant. But when we start looking at something, it might trigger something, back in our DNA. And so anthropologists and the work of anthropologists is really important, and how they're interpreting the pieces of archaeological finds is important. And we can use some of that, but sometimes we will get a very different story, especially when we start linking it to similar findings and discoveries, say in Africa, because then you've got the direct African context for, now that we're aware that our ancestors actually traveled the globe, settled the entire globe, were the founders of civilizations wherever they went. Now that we can actually trace our ancestors around the globe, it's much easier for us to be making those links between the different societies because of the similarities that would have existed. It's just like, our ancestors that left Africa, that left Jamaica and have come here to Britain, they brought their culture with them. And that's what we're looking at when we're looking at history. We're looking at the fact that, you know, our people, when they travel, tend to bring their culture with them, you know, and that's why we're seeing the similarities between the cultures, you know, from Africa, you know, to the Mediterranean, to here in Britain and other parts of Europe. Dr. Clyde talked about the importance of linguistics as well, because, you know, the post-colonialists, the colonialists, they try and make out that we didn't have a script. We didn't have any writing. And not only did we have the languages, and not only is the African language the foundation of all of these languages, but, you know, it's also, we also had our scripts. And Dr. Clyde was actually talking about his area of specialism there, and he's got a book that specifically talks about and helps you to understand, you know, how you can become a linguist specialist. And so the study of languages reveals a lot to us as well, because through the languages you can see the connections between the different cultures. And I actually did that study for one of my papers. I looked at the similarities between Old English language and what we call Patois Jamaican. But unless you know the story of the Irish and the Scottish, who were Africans and who were transported to Jamaica, Montserrat, and America, you won't understand why there is the similarity between Old English and Patois. But that's a completely another story. But I did write about that in my paper, and I should tell you where you can get that. So through language, you can make these connections between, you know, the different populations, and you can see the migration patterns. You can see the cultural exchanges, you know, and so there's a whole field of work in research techniques that involves the analyzing of different languages, African languages and other languages, and there are linguistic specialists who trace the relationship, you know, between the different languages and the different scripts. And so again, when you look at languages, you can't look at them in isolation, because if you do, you're going to miss the journey of that language and the global spread of the language, which will show you where the language is coming from. Wow, and the interconnectedness between the languages, and therefore between the people who brought those languages and spoke those languages. So you can get a whole story around languages as well. The genetics, fairly recent on the scene as well, but they have come in and they have really begun to overturn a lot of the racist assumptions that these 19th, 20th century European historians have been writing about. So, you know, the geneticists, they've kind of come with this whole new field of study, and they are now looking at the skeletons and taking DNA scrapings from these ancient skeleton bones, and it's like nearly all of these ancient skeleton bones that they have been analyzing turn up to have dark pigmentation. They're all Black people, basically. And so this is revolutionizing now our understanding of ancient history, and also the relationship between the different societies, because the geneticists now, they're the ones who are just basically confirming the migration theories. They're the ones who are confirming the fact that, you know, we weren't individual isolated groups and isolated societies, that you can actually trace through genetics and the role of genetics, the cultural development and the global spread of human history. And you can actually, you know, from the dating that they can do and the description of the people like Cheddaman, for example, you know, you can see that us as Africans during ancient times were everywhere. And we're talking about, you know, Homo sapiens sapien Africans, you know, who brought science to the world, who brought their scientific knowledge. And so you can even look at number 7, scientific sources. And when you go way back into history and start looking at, you know, the sciences of our ancestors and looking at, for example, the study of astronomy, the study of the stars and the planets, the documented evidence that there is that our ancestors, you know, had knowledge of the star system, the invisible power rays that go around the globe. They look at their megalithic structures that were in alignment with the stars and the planets, and how they were able to use this knowledge to such a sophisticated level that, you know, in the solstices, they can make the inner tombs where the kings were buried light up. I mean, how phenomenal is that? So the level of scientific knowledge that our ancestors had, when you look at the science of metallurgy, when you look at the science of astronomy, the science of even the voyages that they were doing, they were using science to sail around the world as well, because they had to use the science of navigation to be able to do that. These ancient societies were far from primitive. And when you begin to look at ancient civilization from a scientific perspective as well, look at how they adapted their environments, look at how they were, you know, influenced by the ecosystem, how they studied, for example, you know, the waves, and how they studied, you know, when the wind would blow in certain directions. So if you jumped in the boats between, say, April and October, it might take you north. And then if you jumped in the boat, say, from October around to the other April, the tide would bring you south, and how you could end up, you know, in different parts of the world just by sailing the seas and following the winds like the birds do. These, when you start looking at ancient African societies from, you know, a scientific perspective, and how their knowledge of their environment, what was beneath the earth, the metals under the earth, how they used it to make their tools and their pots and their pans and their houses and everything else, you know, you begin to, as an African, you know, see those ancient societies as far from primitive, but, you know, instead they were advanced, extremely advanced societies for those times. And so, you know, and of course, you know, you can look at legal records, you know, from ancient times coming all the way through. And by examining these legal records, you can get, again, an understanding of the culture of the time, what the arguments were, what groups of people in society were advocating. You can get an understanding of what the politicians, you know, because quite often the politicians were involved in formulating the laws, and you can see, you know, how they were trying to change society, the groups of societies that where they were trying to oppress, why they were being oppressed, what they were fighting against. So you can get whole stories of what was going on during ancient times, or particular times, depending on the era that you're researching, just from studying legal records as well. But, you know, when you, as we were taught in Dr. Clyde's research course, then start putting all of these different sources together, then as a researcher, you know, when you're critiquing and you're questioning pieces of information from the narratives that you're getting in ancient books, from archaeological interpretations, pre-colonial accounts of incidences, with the linguistic and the genetics that give you a description of the people, and then you have the knowledge of the sciences that those people had during those times, then you can come up with a really rich narrative that reveals the advancements of the people in global historical, across the globe during historical times. And, you know, it's this multidimensional approach that we are taught to use to bring an evidence-based view of our understanding of our ancestors during ancient times. So, you know, this is how we are able now then to be able to make the sort of claims that we make. And this is the sort of approach that I use to validate what I'm saying in my books. Just to quickly touch on a couple of my books here, The Remarkable Accomplishments of Ancient African Civilizations. You know, as we know, we've got a whitewashed version of history. We've been brainwashed into thinking, you know, that we don't have a history. And a lot of our young people don't know of our great former Asian history. And as Dr. Clyde was saying, if you know, your history and what we accomplished in the past, then it makes you understand with what you're capable of in the present. And so let our young people know, in that one book, the thousands of years of African scientific brilliance that we brought to the world. You can get that book by Amazon as well. I did a tribute book to Marcus Mosiah Garvey. You can get that free of charge from my Gumroad account. And the reason why I did that, and you need to get that now because it's Mosiah month. August is Mosiah month. This man was legendary in his time, and he's still legendary today. He was doing his great works like during the aftermath of slavery, a time when, we were rock bottom, facing the dirt. There was no race love or anything. And he was fearlessly embracing us as Africans and as an African race. And in the midst of all that struggle, he had a vision, a great vision for us as Africans. And he was talking about the principles of race first. He was promoting racial unity. He was then demonstrating, how we could actually advance as a people because he knew our history. And he said that we must be as proud of our race today as our fathers were in the times of yore, because he said we have a beautiful history, and we shall create another history, another beautiful history in the future that's going to astonish the world. Now, you can only talk like that as a visionary leader if you know your history, because your history will remind you of the greatness of your people. And Marcus Mosiah Garvey was educated in the knowledge of his history because he was a reader, and he brought that knowledge to a people at a time when they needed to hear it. And wow. So, I've done this tribute book. Get that free of charge. You can leave a donation there if you'd like to support the works. And one of the first, a book that I actually wrote while I was still doing my research course, my Dr. Winters research course, was the Black King of Anglo-Saxon Mercia, England, King Offa. Yeah, because it was on that course that I actually came to realize that Britain had a Black King during the Anglo-Saxon era. I'm like, well, why haven't I heard about this Black King during the Anglo-Saxon times? I thought all the Anglo-Saxons were white. And so I started doing the research, and not only did I find out about King Offa, who I wrote about in the book, but I found out about many more Black African kings of Britain over thousands of years, that I've yet to write about, because our history is just so vast. You need a few lifetimes to be able to write about our history. So not only had they concealed the true identity of King Offa, they concealed the true identity of many Black kings. And when you look again at Black science during his time, Black metallurgy during his time, agricultural systems, masonry, the written scripts, the knowledge of navigation and everything, the royalty and aristocracy that existed, you begin to get a completely different image and picture of the lifestyle of us as Africans. So you can still get that book from Amazon as well. And my most recent book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, that book is just going to change how you see and read about British history, because I've unearthed, using the research techniques that I've talked about, I've unearthed evidence of a powerful African presence in Britain that once shaped Britain and the British Isles, hidden in the shadows of ancient Britain, an erased African history restored. And wow, it's an incredible read, and I've started from the Stone Age era. I've given us as Africans a Stone Age era that I haven't read about in the way that I've written it anyway, and anywhere. And that's what the power of uncovering, you know, this knowledge using the research techniques allows you to do. It gives you a good picture of what things must have looked like. So, you know, I've shed light on a significant part of our history that was just totally overlooked before, totally whitewashed, and I've brought it back to life. Some amazing chapters in that book. And amazing characters, numerous amazing characters and their accomplishments and achievements during ancient times as well that you can read about in that book. And my most recent book that I've written really is for the young ones. I've actually brought the story of Queen Scotia to life for the young readers, because I want to inspire our young readers, because the story of Queen Scotia, once I did the research into her, is a story of bravery. It's a story of strength, of wisdom, and determination. And I wanted our young people to, after reading the book, to come away feeling inspired by her journey, and to realize, you know, just, you know, the great challenges that she was able to overcome and accomplish as a result of her upbringing and knowledge of who she was. And so if our children can be brought up to be reading books like this and get confidence in the knowledge of who they are, they too, you know, can be the brave, wise, determined ones to accomplish much in the future. So I did that book based on the true story of Queen Scotia, who Scotland was named after, and let's hope that it contributes to change in the lives of many others. So many more slides, as always, so much that I could talk about family, but I am just going to mention, I think I'll just mention my papers. There's 2 academic papers that I've written to underpin the claims that I'm making in my book. So not only do I have the books, but I've got the academic papers that I've written. And in those academic papers, it actually, and in the books, you know, I do give you my sources as well. Okay, so basically, in the world of academia, you can actually write papers that present evidence and argues your perspective on issues. And that's what I've done here. My first book talks about, you know, the fact that, so that's not the first one, hang on. The first one talks about the admission of us as Africans in Ireland. And this is the recent paper that I've written to underpin the works that I'm talking about in terms of the story of Queen Scotia. I've written a paper that actually highlights her and her descendants as being the foundational ancestors of Gaelic royalty. So lots to for you to read about in those papers, family. And you can get those papers free of charge as well from Academia EDU. And I learned about how to write those papers on Dr. Winters's research course. So I'm going to stop the presentation there and go over to Dr. Winters and you in the chat to find out what you've been saying and what you've been thinking. Dr. Winters, over to you first of all, please.
Again, thanks for that great presentation. Thanks for letting the people know what's going on in terms of how to study this history. And again, you know, you guys, you got to get this book. This book should be in every home, every Caribbean, every Black Caribbean. I know a Chinese lady said that there's no such thing as a Black Caribbean, and then there's no such thing as a patois and all that. But we'll just let her be in her fantasy, because we do know who the real Caribbean people are. But we know that everybody should get this book. because this book, in a sense, will allow your children to know that their history isn't lost, that we're not lost. See, we do know where we came from. Everybody always want to tell us we don't know where we came from. We do know where we came from. We got the names, and we can even find the names. You know, we can find the names. You can go back into the 1600s and see the names of your ancestors. So stop it. Stop it. Stop letting these people delude you. Stop letting these people trick you. Stop letting these people make you feel that you're lost. You're not lost.
That's right.
But if we were lost, we're found now. So you got to, in a sense, get this book, Hidden in the Shadows, and some of the other books and articles written by this wonderful researcher, Dr. Chenise Lindsay. You heard what I said, doctor.
I like that one. Do you like that, family? Should I adopt that? Well, that title given to me by Dr. Clyde Winters himself. Honorary doctor. Let's see what they're saying in the chat. Yeah, so family, if you scroll up in the chat, you'll see that I've actually posted a few links there. I posted the link where you can vote for me for the Influencer Award. I've posted the phone number for Elder Pepper Kai, and I've also posted the link for the petition that we would really love you to sign. Yes, Kwame, that's right. He said, he's reminding us that it was Black hands that built Stonehenge. And I talk about that in my book as well, because I have actually done that research. And yes, indeed, it was Black people that built Stonehenge. And they're now admitting it in their small circles, in their science journals. They're actually admitting that to be the case as well. Enough big ups to Dr. Clyde there from D Buffalo Soldieress. Is saying great assessment, Dr. Clyde. Brother Kwame, Ashe, Sister Shanice, what a remarkable Pan-African you are, my sis. Thank you so much. He said, Baba Sheikh Anta Diop, along with his assistant, Baba Theophile Obenga, schooled Europeans 51 years ago. The original birth of civilization is African, and that's ancient Kemet. Yes, indeed. Gift of God is in the house, saying that what we're talking about is educative. Dr. Clyde, where have you gone? And Thomas Cooper's in the house. Rise up, rise up. Where's the evidence for the Sumerians being Black? And why don't Black people speak Sumerian, he says. Do you want to comment on that, Dr. Clyde?
Well, one of the reasons that's part of the history that's been stolen. The Sumerians, they were Black. Remember, they called themselves Sagiga, the black-headed people, There's like the Egyptians called themselves, Kemetru, the black people. And because, see, they knew who they were. But the thing is that it took us so long to really do the original research. And by doing the original research, we were able, in a sense, to bring this history back to us. See, the history has been stolen for a long time, but what we're trying to do is bring it back. And that's why you should tell all your friends, anybody living in Britain today should make sure that they spread the word that this book, Hidden in the Shadows, should be in every home. Then when your child goes to school and he's mistreated or she's mistreated, when they're called a monkey, when they're told, go back home, you don't know where you came from, then they can bring this book out and say, see, here it is, and they can see authentic research, not written by just Black people. White people wrote this research. They'll believe it now since white people wrote it. But anyway, don't fail to spread the word. Hidden in the Shadows is out. Hidden in the Shadows talks about the Africans are raised from European British history. Let's get started. Let's buy that book. Put your money where your mouth is.
Back in the days, every household used to have like these encyclopedia books, there'd be about 30 of these books on all these different subjects,
Right.
and every household had them, and I agree, every household, especially in our community, needs to have a copy of this book, because it gives us back our history from the Stone Age era, and also the sources are at the back of the books where I got the evidence and the information from, and you can use those sources yourself to write your own books. Yeah, look, Dr. Clyde's got one in his possession there. Thank you so much, Dr. Clyde. I've got about 5 of his books over there as well. We've got to, get the books and read. And maybe we'll pick one of the chapters one of the days to read and talk about. So rise up, family. Oh, yes, I love what Yah Malachiah is saying. He's saying the mental shackles are being broken free. Yeah, you can see it happening, can't you? These are revolutionary times. Back in the days of Champagne's Cheikh Anta Diop, he was calling on us to rewrite our history, to do the research for ourselves and to rewrite our history. And, we're doing that now, which is great. And remember, Marcus Messiah Garvey, he was so confident in who he was because he knew his history. He knew what we had accomplished in the past. And our children need to know their history. And Brother Kwame is saying, it's so remarkable, revealing our real history that was covered up. Rise up, Loretta, saying Buckingham Palace has the Ethiopian prince who they don't want to return to Ethiopia. Our story is fascinating. Imagine, buried on the grounds of Buckingham Palace is an Ethiopian king. That's the word I was trying to get my tongue around. Compartmentalized. Yeah. They've compartmentalized our history, and we've got to decompartmentalize it and restructure it, so that it makes a seamless story. So thank you, Dora Bell, for that. So many more comments in the chat. Brother Kwame's, reminding us that the museums are thieves, and about the robes. And Sister Loretta, these demons, they thieved our diamonds, gold, silver, bronze, yes, everything. They continue to steal from our dead royals. They steal their bones. Wow, they put their bones and their body, their skeletons in their museums. They take their tombs, the goods that they left behind that they thought they were taken to the afterworld. Well, this is the afterworld, isn't it? This is the afterworld. Okay, where are we now? Teachers, lawyers, builders, etc. We had them all, didn't we? Thank you, Brother Kwame, for all your wonderful comments. He says, family, I have Sister Shanice's book, which is inspirational. It's a must. You must buy. Thank you, Brother Kwame, for getting hold of that. He's got the King Arthur book as well. So he knows all about King Arthur. He says, Sister Shanice also wrote about Romans, Saxons, Vikings, and Normans, who are African monarchs in the UKKK. I did a presentation on that. Dr. Clyde and I didn't we, during our training courses when we were looking at Black British history. And I've yet to do, I did a bit of a write-up on that in King Arthur's book, but there is just so much more to our history during that era. Lunkwa, welcome. Good to have you in the house. How, my sister? A great presentation. Also, Dr. Clyde from Lunkwa. Rise up, rise up. Thank you so much. Sister Teresa, rise up as well. Asante Sana for listing petition link. Yeah, please do repost the link as well in the chat. Please do keep reposting it to those who are joining later in the show. So for all of your comments, thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Clyde, would you like to respond to any of the comments and leave any of our listeners with some final remarks?
If they had a question, I'll be happy to answer it.
Any questions? Any questions, family? Loads of comments, but that they've shared. Let's see if there's any specific questions. Lots of big ups, lots of support about us being inspirational. Thank you so much. My comments do take a moment or two to come through. Do you have any questions? We are about to wrap up soon. We're just a couple of minutes from the top of the hour, 6 minutes from the top of the hour. Dr. Clyde, while they're coming up with their final questions, do you have a research course running at the moment? What's the sort of structure? Is there a start date, or is it a roll on, roll off?
Well, it's I have some students in a research course now, but you can go to Amazon.com and not Amazon.com. You can go to Gumroad. You can go to Gumroad, look under Clyde Winters Gumroad Black History course if you're interested in signing up. You can take the course at any time. You can take it as a group, you can take it as an individual, and I'll just set up the time. But check with me first, because check with me first before you really register to make sure that you're registered and everything is legit. Because I don't want people to think they paid their money and then they don't get the lessons, But the course is $599. So if you're really interested in being a researcher, if you're really interested in learning how to do research, take my course. It's $599. You can find out more about that at Gumroad, Clyde Winters Black History course, if you're interested, you see. But again, it's a course that's going to help you to be a researcher. It's going to help you to learn how to do the research, write it up, and then it'll be up to you to take that training and then apply it. I mean, look at Sister Shanice. When I first met her, she had one book that she hasn't finished yet on East Africa. But again, look at all the great work that she's done, the articles at Academia EDU. She's got articles at Academia EDU. She's got 2 books out now. And I know she's working on her 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I can't even pronounce them all, but they're coming, And you guys support the sister, support, One Love. Come on now, One Love. We got to love each other and support each other because see, we ain't got nobody but us. We got no friends.
This is it. And we're doing the work for the love of our community,
right?
Pouring, our life into doing what we're doing. I could be spending my time doing 101 other things, but I just feel as though I want to leave this information behind as a legacy for our people. I'm hoping my books will be around in hundreds of years' time and our futures will be able to find it and find themselves, and find that knowledge of their greatness. And so if you've got that book on your bookshelf, long after you've gone, that book will still be there. The books that I'm reading, some of them are hundreds of years old, and I wouldn't have had access to that knowledge had those authors not written those books. So yeah, do get it. Put it on your bookshelf, even if you don't read it. Maybe your future will actually read it. And on that research course, I know it's not you do primary research as well. So you have to find something to research. And then you do a lot of statistical stuff as well. Remind us, oh my gosh, that statistical side was the hardest part of the course for me. All of the, we have to come up with all these equations and tell us a little bit about what that's all about.
Well, it's basically so you can do any type of research, And, what you find is several people who are working on their PhDs have recommended their friends to take my course because a lot of times when people are at university and they're doing their PhD, it's real easy. You have the instructor and the instructor is giving you a class and, and a class outline, you got your syllabus and all that. But then when it's time to write up your dissertation, that's when the problem comes in because most people, they don't really teach you how to do research at university. You just happen to read a lot of books and then you put the material together and then that becomes your dissertation. But in my class, I teach you how to do the research, how to analyze the research. I teach you how to read anthropological, linguistic, and genetic literature and how you can interpret it and be able to use it. So again, it's very important in the sense that you look at these things, but also remember is that, let the researcher do the researcher, but you can be the researcher too. Get hidden in the shadows. Hidden in the shadows of ancient Britain and erased African history. Restored.
Eyes up. Rise up, Brother Kwame Osei in the house. He says, how long have African people been in cities like London, Leeds, Brighton, Derby? Wow, tens of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. You know, the Phoenicians used to come to Britain to buy tin from the Picts. And so the Picts were mining in places like Cornwall thousands of years ago. Yeah, and so, you know, we've been around, according to the geneticists, we arrived here at least 44,000 years ago. And that could be, you know, an underestimate as well, because, you know, they don't really know how old we are. But yeah, even in names, I didn't touch on that in terms of the sort of research techniques, but you can use old names of places, just like what Dr. Clyde touched on just now. You can use old names of counties, cities, countries, you know, because a lot of the time our ancestors would name places after themselves. Yeah, but you have to understand the linguistics within the name to recognize that, you know, it was actually named by our ancestors as well. So we've been around and our people named places after them. So, for example, the whole region of Scotland, before it became known as Scotland and Ireland, was called Pictland. Pictland, because it was named after the Picts, the short-statured Africans that came over and settled there thousands of years ago. There's just so many examples. Okay, well, it's that time where we've come to the end of our show for today. I thank you all so much for tuning in. And I thank you, Dr. Clyde Winters, for your great works and for joining us on the platform today. As always, it's a pleasure. So if you're not a subscriber, oh, you're most welcome. And
rise up, rise up, rise up.
If you're not a subscriber to Dr. Clyde's channel, please do subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do subscribe as well. They probably won't count you because, you know, they're doing their squiggly diddly with our channels because they don't want the truth to come out, but we're putting it out there anyway. So subscribe, please share the knowledge, share the love, buy the books, get the freebies. It's all good. More love, more strength, more voodoo power. Thanks again, Dr. Clyde Winters.